All right, today we've got Thiago Viana, who is the Senior Director of Corporate Communications for Savills North America, a commercial real estate brokerage. Thiago, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. It's funny, I saw my former boss, who I had a dotted line to at Cushman & Wakefield, Brad Krieger, come on talking about his punk rock days. So I have some big shoes to fill, not only as an interview guest, but eventually as a professional, because that man has accomplished so much in the industry. And I mean, in the short time that I've worked with him, I just saw him in action, and I learned so much from how he approaches the business. So again, big shoes to fill here. So let's hope I can do it.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, hey, you know what? If you don't, that's okay, because our topic today is going to be about failure.
Yeah.
And the fear of failure. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But I think, let's start off with just like, you have such an interesting story. And
Sure.
you kind of shared a little bit of it with me. And I mean, it's all started with this immigrant kid from Brazil, right?
Yeah. So born in Brazil. I have a twin brother. My twin brother and I were born in Brazil, and at one year and a few months, my parents decided to pack everything up. We had a pretty good life in Brazil, but the American dream called my father specifically, and we packed it up and we moved to Corona, Queens, pretty much right off the bat. And my father shined shoes at the World Trade Center and drove out cab at night, and my mother took care of us at home and did some odd jobs. Our story is your typical immigrant story. We slept on a mattress in a very small apartment. We went dumpster diving, like many immigrants at the time tend to do, because you just have to do whatever it takes to make a life in America. And my father would always say, you don't quite understand the sacrifices you have to make coming to a new country until you're in that new country.
Thiago, I got to ask about that. I'm assuming that's probably not what they had in mind when they came here, but no. You don't really know what you're doing. You never know, like you said, until it actually happens.
No, you don't. And it's one of the memories I vividly, remember as like a 3-year-old. One of the first memories I remember, it's my twin brother and I, my aunt, who ended up moving from Brazil to kind of help my mom take care of us, walking around Corona, Queens, and just kind of picking things, from the curb, whether it was like a piece of furniture or, a side cabinet or side table. So yeah, I mean, look, we had a happy childhood in Corona, Queens, and, my parents again worked very hard, but it's not a story that is foreign to many immigrants coming over here. I mean, you do what needs to be done to make it. And, that my father in particular has to this day a hell of a work ethic.
Yeah.
And I mean, shining shoes at the Trade Center with my aunt, who shined shoes with him, by the way.
Wow.
And then at night driving a cab. But that man has always worked really hard. And then my mom, she currently runs a bar next door to the house where we grew up in Harrison, for the most part. One of the stories that I mentioned to you when we first met that really shaped me as an individual, shaped my brother as an individual, and we didn't know it at the time, was just how much my mother actually struggled. So I mentioned this story to you about being 15, 16 years old, getting ready to go to prom, and PSE&G would just come and shut off our lights because my mother couldn't pay the light bill. So we'd come home from school and the lights would be shut off. And lo and behold, the lights were shut off because she was paying for prom. Right. She wanted us to have a prom.
And she had to choosing between prom or the lights at home.
Choosing between prom or the lights. She's such a driving force in kind of who I am as an individual and a professional. And to see her struggle, how she struggled, and maintain the composure and, not show the stress of facing failure, facing your lights being turned off. Never not having food on the table, but, maybe microwaving a pan to take a bath every once in a while, but never robbing us of what it was to be like a child or growing up, right? Like, in an environment where it would have scarred us.
there are different directions that you could go, right? Like some people have that experience and then they, unfortunately end up in a place that, isn't the SVP of Corporate Communications at a major, at a big real estate brokerage. It's something the opposite of that. I guess, you had to make decisions along the way.
Sure. And
you had to do things along the way to sort of face some of this failure and overcome these challenges. So what happened? You were, there with the mom and the lights got shut off and then you walked up to the brokerage and they just gave you a job.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. That's no, I should say that I should take a step back before I kind of go into the next step of what happened after things got a little bit better financially. But my parents, so we lived here for a while, and then around 7, 8, or 9, we ended up moving to Brazil. My dad had made a significant amount of money in America, owning his own business, a transport business. And then they were like, okay, it's time to go back to Brazil. Our life is there. Our family is there. We have some money. It'll convert well. We're going to live well in Brazil. And we did for about a period of 4 months. My parents lost every single dime that they had saved in the United States.
What?
By making some questionable investments in our own country. So that's when we moved back to America, slept on the mattress again.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, slept on a mattress again. Like we're in 4th or 5th grade. And then, things got a little bit better, but fast forward, my mom kind of taking care of us, the lights going off, et cetera. So going into college, my brother and I were lucky enough to have a really good friend group that kept everyone honest, and everyone's kind of doing a bunch of different things. But the group of friends that we had or have till this day, I mean, we're all friends for about 30 plus years, to be honest, probably 12 of us guys, 10 of us guys.
That's pretty special.
Yeah, we all kind of lived in this bubble. So Harrison, where we grew up, that Harrison Ave sign behind me means so much to me because it shaped me so much as an individual. We could have gone one way or the other. And so we all not necessarily kept the straight and narrow when we were kids, right? We all fooled around, but we all kind of had this vision for each other of like, okay, well, what's the future look like? So I went to college with my brother, rooming with my brother at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I fell in love with politics, and this well-known politician or budding politician at the time named Cory Booker, who was just defeated by Sharp James, the incumbent mayor of Newark, and had put out a documentary called Street Fight. Cory must have been 27 at the time when he ran for mayor. Wow. So here I am, a college junior, I'm watching Street Fight, and I think to myself, I have to go work for this guy. So I call a 1-800 number. I'm sitting in my mom's 97 Honda Accord, which my brother and I unfortunately beat up. Yeah. But I remember, from my mouth to God's ears, I'm sitting in this 97 Honda Accord. I was delivering pizza for a pizzeria called Nino's Pizzeria in Harrison. Someone picks up. I get an interview with someone at Newark City Hall, random 1-800 number. They go, okay, great. We're going to have you intern under the kind of this prisoner reentry program where you're working with the department that helps ex-cons kind of settle back into day-to-day life. It was a big initiative of Mayor Booker's at the time, so I was pumped. But here I am, public relations minor, history major. I'm in. I'm going to work in government in New Jersey, and I love New Jersey. That's a whole other topic. But I'm going to make a difference, man. And that my first day being an intern, I walk in and they go, well, we don't have a place for you here in this department. But guess what? The communications team needs an intern. Would you be open to interning with the communications team? So they walk me down. Esmeralda Cameron Diaz, his press secretary at the time, goes, I need an intern. You're going to intern with me. And that woman taught me so much about the public relations business in the short time that I interned for Cory Booker that I fell in love with it. And lo and behold, here I am, Fairleigh Dickinson University, small college in New Jersey. I'm probably the only non-Ivy League intern at the time. And then it just happened to be a great position because I ended up trailing Cory Booker everywhere. And I ended up sitting with him and translating articles from Portuguese to English because, Newark has a huge Portuguese contingent and a huge Portuguese Brazilian population. And I just fell in love with communications from there.
But talk about following your nose, though. Like I saw a documentary. Yeah. And then I called a 1-800 number because I just need to work with them. I don't exactly know how. I mean, that's amazing to just follow that thread down as far as it goes, and it landed.
I mean, yeah. One of the traits that I think our parents passed out to my brother and I is resourcefulness and just making do and just figuring out a way.
Don't you think there's probably a nature? I mean, this is a bit of a guess too, because I always wonder why I am the way I am and why other people are, but like just the types of things you're hearing on a daily basis, even the way that your dad or your mom might have just spoke about things. I don't know if you heard them talk much about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like just about the nature of how they might even approach a problem. Like, are they going to be somebody who's going to ever talk about why they can't do something? Or are they going to be talking more about like, all right, let's figure out how to do this and let's, take the first step.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things, or one of the themes as I reflect on my childhood and how my parents parented my brother and I is there was never an I can't moment, never a moment of despair or a moment of this isn't going to work out. Like even when the lights were off, the lights were only going to be off for a day. So we're only going to have to do this for a day.
Right.
And I think we learned that from my parents. I think my parents approached every obstacle that they've encountered with a creative way to solve for a set obstacle. So
yeah,
personally, I've always operated with an A to Z mentality, right? And I see A, and here I am. I'm at A, right. And then I see Z, and Z is where I know I need to be, or where I want to go, and I don't care how I get to Z. So maybe there's just this comfort of like, forget about the B to Y stuff. Mm-hmm. Like that stuff, that's all going to take care of itself.
Right.
But if I saw a documentary, and that's my A, and my Z is interning for Cory Booker, and I don't have an in, I'm going to find a way to get to Z.
And then obviously some of this is, you're learning from your parents, you're learning from these different figures in your life, but, then you're putting it out there in practical ways, and your life experience is obviously informing who you are and how you think about failure. Talk about your next stage after the Cory Booker. I understand that your career took a couple zigs and some zags.
They took some zigs, some zags, and then some more zags.
Yeah.
But so I graduated in 2009 after a nice stint interning for Cory Booker. There were no jobs for graduates in the communication space. In 2008, there was a gentleman in Harrison where I grew up that said, hey, this chiropractor who I know is a pretty entrepreneurial guy, and he's looking for, wait for it, executive assistant. Mm-hmm. So my first job out of college, making $15 an hour, was an executive assistant to a chiropractor, Dr. Diego Ruiz. And
a little bit different,
but you have to read past the headline there. Right. We got to get into the meat of the news, so to speak. Dr. Ruiz did not teach me how to be an executive assistant. He taught me how to be an entrepreneur and think on my feet and think creatively and work with a non-traditional client. When I say non-traditional client, I mean chiropractors are great marketers, right? So he taught me a lot about how to market myself, but also market, non-traditional businesses, and, how to think and how to form relationships with people, and, how to get involved in not-for-profits. So I spent a year with Dr. Ruiz, and I kept in touch with Esmeralda, Cameron Diaz, who introduced me to this company that needed a PR coordinator. So a year and a half or a year or so after Dr. Ruiz, I jumped to this firm, and unfortunately, it was a terrible experience. It was a horrible experience for 2 years. I remember distinctly being 25 years old. We're at this happy hour, and I go up to my boss at the time, and I'm just so excited to be part of a company and finally break into the public relations industry. And I go to him and I say, hey man, like, where do you think I'll be in 5 years? Like, I like it here. Mm-hmm. And without missing a beat, he looks at me right, like dead in the eye, and he goes, you're going to be sitting right there drafting press releases for me. You get that feeling in your stomach, and you're just like, oh man,
it's not a good feeling. Yeah.
Like that's a bit discouraging. It wasn't a great experience. So much so that I just kind of 2 years in, I quit without a job. And again, fear of failure, right? Like, I'm like, I don't have a job. Right. I don't have a safety net. My parents cannot bankroll me here.
Like, nobody's going to be catching this. Yeah, exactly.
No one's going to be catching this. So like, I am taking a chance. I ended up working 2 jobs. Again, Harrison means so much to me. Again, it's back there. That sign follows me everywhere for the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. So I ended up getting a job at the rec department where I worked in high school. So now I'm 26, 27 years old. I get a job at the rec department working with my best friend. And in the mornings, we would rake the Little League. What I didn't mention to you when we first spoke is that I was so broke. My lease was up on my Scion at the time. I didn't have the money to lease a new car or have a car. So this memory will stick with me forever. On the road, on the highway, got from my mouth to God's ears, I gave the car back and I rode my bike back 12 miles home.
Oh, man. Wow.
On the highway.
On the fixie.
On the fixie.
That's not like a road bike with like, it's not like 15 speeds.
No helmet. No helmet. In that period from like 20, I want to say, 26 and a half to 27 and a half, I was just kind of doing odd jobs. And like my parents did in the 80s, just try to figure it out. I applied everywhere. And one of the stories that I mentioned to you that I mentioned here was that February day where I'm like, I need to get back into an agency. I need to get back into PR in some way, shape, or form. So me and my best friend, he wanted to apply to jobs in the city too. So we took the path, and we're totally different industries. He was like, I'm going to go apply to some telecommunication jobs. And I'm like, I need to find every agency that I can walk into randomly and just hand them my resume. So I printed out a bunch of PR firms from downtown to midtown. This is February, dead of winter in New York City. Printed out 15, 20 copies of my resume. And I walked from downtown to midtown with my buddy. And every stop, I'd either sneak into a building or find my way to a main office, to a main PR office, and I would just give anyone my resume. And there were people that looked at me with, like, I had three heads.
So I gotta ask while you're in that, like, that mode, and then before that, with the odd jobs for the couple of years, were you feeling a sense of failure? Were you feeling like this, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I should just give up, and, kind of help me understand what your state of mind was at that time?
Anytime you're facing uncertainty, especially when it comes to your job prospects, there are certainly some sleepless nights where, like, have I failed? Everything my mom sacrificed for my brother and I, everything that I've done to get up to this moment, has it been for nothing? And that could have been crippling, and I could have completely just said, screw PR, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go be a substitute teacher, and until a full-time, teaching gig opens up, I'll figure it out.
Right.
But I loved the industry so much, and I knew that I was good at what I did at the time. And I said, I got to make it. Failure be damned.
Yeah.
I'm going to try every way, shape, or form to not let failure be what stops me from getting back into the industry. Failure is not the destination; it's a stop on the way.
Right.
So with that thinking in mind, I'm like, I'm going to beat down doors. I'm going to network. I'm going to figure out how to get back into the industry. I was living with my mother. My poor mother was bartending, and here I am. I had to get a job right away because now my mom doesn't have to sacrifice anymore, or sacrifice as much as she did for us growing up. So I'm up one night, and it's like midnight, and there's this website called Media Bistro, and I come across this job listing for Quinn Public Relations. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, let me just send this resume, cover letter. I'm like, they're not going to call me back.
What's the worst could happen?
Like, but I got a call. I got a call from one Eileen Melendez. And she is now the chief operating officer at Quinn. She was the head of HR at the time, and she changed my life. That call changed my life. They hired a 27-year-old going on 28 account executive.
They just giving you a chance, or like, what was, like, why they
totally gave me a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, they totally gave me a chance. I was not the most polished writer at the time.
Yeah.
Certainly not the most polished interviewer, I don't think. I tend to bring the New Jersey out in me from time to time.
I hear a little bit of it in there. It's in there.
Yeah. But they took a chance on me. Greg McGonigal, who would sit with me and just edit my press releases I learned so much from him from a writing perspective. And then Cassie Small, who ended up being my boss and is a great friend to this day, coming to my wedding, next year, came in and to become my direct manager for most of my time at Quinn. And one of the things that she lives by was let your freak flag fly. In the sense that go be yourself, bring yourself to your role, be genuine, be authentic. What's your skill set? Like, what do you like to be in a relationship with clients? Go do that if that works for you. I found my niche there, which was commercial real estate. I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with it hard.
I want to ask about the freak flag and letting it fly. You probably know what that means now more than ever. Yeah. But like, was there a moment while you were there where you started to exercise that?
What I've always hung my hat on is like, I am who I am at work and at home. You're not getting a different Thiago anywhere. Obviously, you're professional and you approach your job a certain way, but I always hung my hat on building genuine relationships with people and being who I am.
I think I struggled with this early on too. It's like, sort of, you got to hide yourself and sort of blend in. Like, I got to be able to assimilate so that I can, get in with this group or whatever you're trying to do when you're young.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate differentiator, is there's only one you. And how do you become like that ultimate version of yourself?
Yeah.
And boy, having some people if you're already kind of that person, but you have some other people in your life that are helping sort of form that's pretty powerful.
I think managers completely make or break your experience. I mean, I don't care what company you're in. It could be the best company in the world with 5-star Glassdoor reviews. If your manager holds you back, or if it's a tough manager, you're going to have a terrible experience.
Well, and they sound more like mentors the way you describe it.
Sure.
Even. Like there's like technically they're a manager, but boy, if they're teaching you things that you need and they're helping you channel the best version of you, boy, that sounds like a mentorship. It's pretty awesome.
And you need mentors at every stop. You need mentors that will tell you it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Like, you only learn when you mess something up or something doesn't go right, because that allows you to self-diagnose, or that allows you to kind of take the next step and look forward. I've been lucky to have a manager at every stop.
Now, I got to ask, you mentioned a Bernie Mac story.
Yeah. I don't know. Can you see it back there, by the way?
I see it.
There it is.
He's back there.
He's back there.
He's on the mic.
Bernie Mac in the early 90s. And by the way, I'll take this down here. This hangs on my desk. I don't know if there you go.
Yeah.
This hangs on every desk that I've sat in over the last 13 years. This picture has followed me. So Def Jam Comedy was a big show on HBO in the early to mid 90s. And these comedians would go perform in front of these crowds that were notoriously very challenging to perform in front of. And Bernie Mac walks out and he's dressed to the nines. And the first thing he says to this crowd is, "I ain't scared of y'all," with an expletive.
Y'all was replaced with something else, right?
Yeah. But that line of I'm not scared.
Right.
If I'm not scared of going into a room that is incredibly intimidating, that one line has resonated so much with me personally, because as a communications professional, one of the things that we were tasked with doing is going into difficult rooms, having difficult conversations.
During crisis
that element of not being scared of walking into a room that may be difficult or challenging, that stuck with me. I took that and I've taken it with me. Like, you can't be scared to walk into rooms.
I worked with a lot of like special forces people and like in the military, and they go into these rooms where it's like life and death and stuff. And it's, the reality is there is that feeling, but that's how they choose to handle that feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the ways that you approach fear and not have fear around failing is to be prepared.
Right.
Right. So anytime you approach a conversation with a senior executive, you're not just approaching it with one solution, you're approaching it with three. And I think, that you have to be prepared. Great comedians prepare.
Right.
Bernie Mac prepared that bit. He said that over and over and over in small clubs across the country until he had his big shot with HBO, and that bit was prepared.
Totally.
And he came in and he nailed it. And the story's written. He's one of the more famous comedians of all time.
I love that. I think, I guess we've got some good lessons some takeaways here from like, how do we face this fear of failure? I mean, one of the things that's going to stick with me is just the go with your gut, right? Like, let your freak flag fly, like be the best version of you. I love the Bernie Mac story of just like taking on that fear head on and with courage, even if there is some feelings back there.
If we're providing takeaways, one is certainly going with your gut. To your point, go with your gut. Your gut will never steer you wrong. And go with your gut after thinking. Don't do anything in haste, right? So don't answer an email too fast. Don't think about what you're going to do before you do it. Ultimately, go with your gut. Prepare to walk into difficult rooms. Be yourself. Be authentic. Just be who you are. Life is too short to go into work and be someone else. That is exhausting. You'll burn yourself out. They hired you for you, right? Not to be some robot. Ultimately, even if you fail, if you do those three things and fail along the way, because you inevitably will, you go to sleep at night knowing that you did things in a genuine and authentic way. And I think that makes it easier for you to kind of approach life, whether things work out or not.
Absolutely. I think that is the point of failure, right? Is learning. Yeah. So I love that. Well, Thiago, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your story. It's a unique story, and it's really cool to see sort of where you started, where you ended up, and obviously not even where you ended up, because you're just still on your way to the next thing, the next phase, the next chapter of your life. So it'll be exciting to see where you go.
It was awesome. It was a pleasure to be on. Thank you, by the way, for having me on. I think what you're doing is great, and I really appreciate the time.
Awesome. Grateful to have you.
Eu fango.